team, your captains are there for a reason, and you ask them, okay, we got a bus ride, think about it, sit with it, when we get done, let's talk. I love that they said once they get off the bus, no, we're not ready yet, Coach Jason and Coach Sharp. We haven't been able to chit chat a little bit. They did, and they came up with a solution. So not only are you giving them ownership, which every employee should feel and have, you're also letting them know and giving them the safety, the safe environment that if you make a mistake, that's actually really positive. Let's go ahead and fix that. That's a good thing. So let's help you learn as an individual, and then let's help the company learn and be better. And from there, then our guests, our customers, whatever type of business you have, your clients, are going to do so much better because we learned as a team and we're open to mistakes, which still to this day is not the way it is overall. You know that. You know it better than I do, being in the corporate world that you're in. And that leaders always, so many leaders want to say, I'm going to solve the problem. If you're a true leader, you have, like you said, helped your employees have ownership to know what to do in that situation because they're doing that situation every day. You're not an expert on their field because they're doing it every day. And that's who you want to rely on. Say, okay, this is what come up, help us out with a solution and work together as a team. So there's many reasons why you've been and are so successful as a leader, coming from somebody that doesn't want the light shined on them, and that it's difficult for you to, really be around everyone like that. That's not but you are driven. You're always looking to learn, and you're never anyone to ever give up. So how do you do it? And I think from our upbringing, and I always say this to Jack, and I don't know, we share, someone might go, well, you're quite an ego you got right now. I always tell them you're a sharp, so you're a leader. We had, I think, very good role models with our parents and how we should conduct ourselves and how we should treat people. And I feel that's a leader. So I tell Jack that all the time. I go, people watch you. They watch how you act. So when you're acting poorly, they're seeing that, thinking, oh, can we act that way? When they're watching you act with the kindness and the care for others, oh my gosh, Jack, this is what I want to do. So those are, it's really impressive. And that all comes from one background, you're, growing up, but also everything that you've had to go through to get over the hurdles that you encounter where your mind doesn't quite work in a certain way. So, take empathy or what have you. So you've had to adapt with that. So wow, I know it's 12 o'clock. You probably got, something to do, because we haven't even touched on the family stuff. We haven't, this is kind of what I wanted to do, because I didn't want it to be, because I mentioned it, because I thought maybe it'd be a good idea for us to be able to share this. And then when I was like, I just want this to be our natural conversation, where it goes, where it's going to go, in what direction. And because I have a lot of family questions personally, which I think would possibly help others later on. And we just touched on the business stuff. It's amazing. We've done this for 2 hours, and I don't even think I think we've done a good job on some really important points. Yet there's just so much to it. There's just so many layers. And really, because of where you've been able to get in your life, trying to figure out how to get where you want to go in life through the challenges you've had. And when someone else, so that goes right back to the Chris and Nick Nickage, with Jack meeting Chris, our lives have completely changed from meeting him for a half an hour. But yet, God's Protective Harbor set it up so Jack could have a little talk time with that as well.
Yeah.
So, he got probably 15 minutes or what have you. Now we're in their training thread. They do Sunday night Zoom calls. So I asked if we could be in those. Jack's not at their training level yet. And of course, Nick was like, absolutely. And we just started that. So Jack hadn't seen them since, I think it was March, that talk. And so where you're at is a big help for others because they can see where they can achieve. And I'm not taking away from anyone else at any other level. Yet, when you do have someone that is so successful, and I'm just going to say, I mean, you are a wonderful coach. You are. I've known it. And I mean, you are my brother, so I'm biased, but it's the truth. And I've always watched your career and how you've been a leader and been very, very impressed with that. And so the whole combination. So I really want you to keep doing those videos and not feel like, well, I've got this, so why should I speak? I don't have severe autism, or I'm not a. You need to, because you have overcome those challenges. And just because people can't see them, or they're not the physical challenge, they're the mental challenges. Like, I can't emphasize enough. There's no way you'd want to pick up a phone. There's no way you'd want to get in front of a group of people. Yet you did it because you wanted to do something. You overcame because you wanted to achieve something. And you did it, and you kept moving forward. And I applaud you for that. And you are someone that needs to speak. And you are someone that will continue being very helpful to everyone. So and again, I said this to Cynthia, like, I don't know how anyone would take. I'm actually excited that you have this life change right now in the business aspect. I'm thrilled for you. I felt it was just that, because you have no choice now. Okay, I'm going to do these things I've been creating because I've got the time to do it now. They said it's time for me, so I'm doing it. And I know you're going to be super successful, and it's going to help other people. So I'm just super proud of you, without a question.
Oh, hey, well, it's funny you mentioned one of the things that always cracked me up about leaders, managers, what have you, is you'd be amazed how many hours and how many millions of dollars are spent with leaders, managers, and what have you, trying to figure out why something isn't working, or why aren't we getting the results we're supposed to get, or da 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 da. And for me, it's always been, like, I think, very black and white, and it's only just because it's been proven over and over again. You'll sit there and you'll point out, well, have you thought about the fact that you're not following your own process? See, that's a negative statement. People don't like negative statements. So then what you'll get is you'll get this whole, well, it's the economy, it snowed in Montana, well, it's like that, and they'll come up, so they'll spend hours talking about all the reasons why maybe we're not following the process. That's what I'm saying was, and what got me thinking about is when you're talking about, when you have your meetings, you talk about mistakes and what have you, is it the back end that's making it more difficult? Is it your skill set or what have you? And so you'd be amazed how many thousands of hours and millions of dollars are spent with leaders sitting around talking amongst themselves why things aren't going so well. And one of the questions that I always look at and I ask, I'm never very popular when I ask it, because I love red. Give me a scorecard, especially when I join a new line of business. So I like to see the red. What's not working right, and can we figure it out? So I ask them, and usually as you gain credibility, people listen to this more, but it's like, okay, so how close are you to the process? Wow, they'll come up with all these things. Like, I can't control the weather. I can't control the economy. I can't control the political environment. And I can't boil, I can't do anything else. One of the things I love is I can't boil an ocean, but I can make a cup of coffee. So let's look at it, right? So for instance, back at the bank in the academy and when I was at Seismic, I have a metric a lot of people don't use, and I call it the demonstrated proficiency. Okay. So we always assume just because we put someone through a 45-minute session, or we gave them a 10-minute lesson or something like that, that they are now proficient. They know what's going on. So demonstrated proficiency takes into account all those available opportunities you had to learn about whatever the topic is. And then if it's a acknowledgement or completion, you get 100, right? So if you did it, you get 100. Or if there's a quiz knowledge check or something like that at the end, that's your score. So if you're below like the accepted pass score of 80, okay, you don't get credit for that course. Oftentimes when I'd go into a new line of business, stuff like this, and this happened recently, demonstrated proficiency was 19%. Okay, so as a leader, I look at that and say, okay, so if we're only 19% proficient on what we're trying to do, that means only 20% of the people or 100% of the people only understand 20% of what we're trying to do. For someone like me, who's a process guy, and let's take the lead, that's the first thing I want to dig into. Normally what ends up happening, though, because that's not a silver bullet, that takes some work, that takes some follow-up. Normally people try to, let's do something else, let's put out new content, let's whatever, let's rah, let's put out a new incentive, or let's do a whatever. And so it's really interesting because when you talk about those mistakes, what you're doing is you're saying, oh, this is a mistake. And if someone says, well, I'm having trouble with the back end, you're probably sitting down and taking a look at it and go, okay, show me how you're using it. What are you trying to do? And you're either going, oh, I see where you're wrong. And you're like, oh, try this. And you realize it's not the back end skill, but now the person has a skill. Or you sit there going, this happens to me all the time. Holy cow. And then you go to the web developer and say, hey, look, I was just trying to do X, but here's what I'm getting. I get an error message or whatever that. Now all of a sudden you have somebody that's gaining confidence, not only you, because you just said, I don't know, but you're sitting there with somebody doing it. I had a great leader. I've had a couple of them, but I had one I'll never forget. And he said, if things aren't going right and you can't articulate why not, this is in a contact center, put on a headset and go listen to somebody, right? Go coach someone up. So don't worry about the big picture. Don't worry about your cash goal. Don't worry about your product goal. Don't worry about your call, time goal. Don't worry about all that stuff. If you can't put your finger on what's going wrong, go coach somebody. And what I notice a lot, and I've worked with a lot of people across the world and companies, and again, and I had very unique views at the bank when I left there at the back end and how this thing the whole runs and the data, and that was one of the great things about the academy. Where ended up being company wide. Same thing. And you see these inner workings, and it's amazing that just that ability to say, wait a minute, let's take my eye off of my goal, that end goal. Let me go help somebody. So who's struggling the most, right? And another person I learned this from too was it wasn't a stated thing, but when I was a manager in our sales department in one of our contact centers in Belfast, and I was a team manager, I had 20 folks, right? And there was a guy that was next to me, Brian, started every day with coaching. Not administrative stuff, not checking his email, not, reading up on what's going on Flagscape, not checking the weather, not all that stuff. He'd come in and his team started, I think it was like 5 to 7 in the morning. And at 7 to 7, every single day, you'd see him with a headset on. He's listening, he's doing side by sides. And what he was doing was he was able to identify. See, a lot of people do blind coaching, right? They just come up with a plan and do whatever. What he was really good at was, oh, I just figured out what it's kind of like with you working on the back end, right? Oh, I just figured out where the struggle is. Okay, let me go get some resources if he didn't know how to do it on his own, and let's work on that, right? And so he was a great, we're peers, right? But it was just great watching him because I knew, wait a minute, you know what? I can't control a lot, but I'm not going to get out coached. Right. And so then what ended up happening is him, myself, a couple other peers, we started cross coaching. Hey, I don't seem to be connecting right. Right. So we all knew her. It's, a couple hundred people in the department. So you get to know each other's teams, whatever. Would you mind, whatever? And we'd clear it with the person, say, hey, do you mind if because I get a little different personality, a little different, everybody's reality is perception and experience. Right. So, and it was really cool. And he was one of the, it was really neat. And as we got into the fundamentals coaching, you'd have these little wins and you share them. So one of the things that is interesting when you think about the process and what might be helping someone struggle, instead of trying to float a silver bullet, one of my favorite coaching sessions ever, I was working with this woman and she also has respect for it. She was great, but she was really struggling on a certain metric. And so as we're going along, I was sitting there. And so I was listening. I said, hey, we're going to sit here until we figure this out. And what it ended up being, it wasn't anything skill-wise. wasn't attributes. It wasn't anything like that. There was a certain aggressiveness when she was talking to males, right? Not all males, but not to call him out, but think of our father. There are certain times in his life when he may have been a little intimidating. Okay, think about that on the phone. So what we did, it wasn't anything about knowledge. It wasn't anything about, but I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden it was like, wait a minute, I got it. It's this personality, right? It's person has an issue, male, usually of an older demographic, right? And they are deep voice, and you can just see the hair. You know what I mean? They might not even be doing it. This is the picture you get, right? So what we worked on was, hey, okay, you're a great listener. You know more about what we do than anybody else I know. You're patient. But what ended up happening was when she would respond, it wasn't the most assured, confident response. Kind of sit back in your chair. So what we worked on was, okay, as they are telling you what you're doing, I don't want you really cautious. You're going to listen, but I don't want you really going. I want you to recognize that this is a scenario, and we're going to practice breathing. We're going to breathe in, breathe out. We're going to breathe in, breathe out. And when they get done, we're going to very confidently say, thank you for telling me that, sir, if I understand you correctly. Very confident. You know what ended up happening? Goal achievement, goal achievement, goal achievement, goal achievement, because those calls used to ruin days. Mm-hmm. And now we've equipped somebody that naturally wasn't aggressive themselves to be able to, here's the scenario. Okay, fine. See, I'm an imitator. I'm in this scenario. Okay, this woman, I'm naturally stand up straighter. I'm going to consciously breathe as I'm listening. And my response is going to be, thank you for telling me that, sir, if I understand you correctly. Now, did I come up with that myself? No. A couple of years earlier, when I was on a different team over in customer service, when this guy I used to work with as manager, that's how he took manager calls, because they're always mad. I didn't come up with it, but I matched two scenarios together.
Right.
And it's like, this is how I learned to do the manager call from him. Like, when you get these people, this is what you do. You breathe, you sit up straighter, come back, try it with you. And of course, it's not going to be perfect the first time, right? I mean, how many people try something for the first time is perfect? That's something I think is amazing too. People roll out a new initiative or a new whatever, and they're like, oh, why is it? I don't know. When you swung over golf club the first time, did you get a hole in one? No, you probably missed the ball, right? So having a little bit of grace and stuff. But so you talking about as you sit down and try to figure out, hey, is it the system, the resource? Is it your skill set? Is it, those are things that, are really interesting. Then you mentioned family earlier. That's one of the things I think has been really beneficial from this whole piece is really recognizing the fact that not only myself, but, Heidi and the girls and what have you, that I'm not super empathetic, or what have you. But what I've tried to do is develop a keen sense of awareness. So instead of not knowing what to do and just kind of, ignoring it, which I'm great at denial, rationalization, and ignoring things, right? Is, oh, you seem upset. I should be paying attention to you. Right? And at first you verbalize it. Now it's more of a, and kind of, being aware that this is a moment where I need to, whatever my head is doing, whatever, this is a moment for me to pay attention to somebody else. And then be aware of the scenario so that oftentimes, as you probably know, and I guess this is normal around, I'd say normal people, a lot of times people just need to express themselves, let out the emotion, like vent, like they don't need you to fix it. They don't need whatever. They have just had something happen. And it's really neat because one of the confirmations of my neurodiversity actually happened at our banquet this year. Olivia's a senior. It's her last year. We're giving out the certificates and the letters and all that stuff. And of course, it's her time. And she was like, Dad, you got a little bit emotional. And I said, well, I know I'm usually not emotional, but I knew that in this scenario, a certain level of emotionalness for a certain period of time will be accepted and appropriate without people looking at it as, oh, he's just a sovereign, da, 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 da. And Levy goes, see, Dad, you're not normal. Normal people wouldn't have gone through that thought process before they got up and talked about their daughter. Most people would either get up there and have the talk and not been emotional or been emotional. They wouldn't have figured out the amount of emotion they can show and the amount of time they can show it to be within an acceptable range in this scenario with this, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I was like, oh, they don't? And she's like, no. And I go, oh man, I rack my brain on that stuff all the time. You know, before you're getting into an event or something like that, like what's the, you know, from my experience and everything I've watched through life, here's what I'm walking into. What's the acceptable, you know, no matter what scenario you're walking into, hopefully I've done it before and I have some sort of idea of what's the acceptable level of this, that, the other thing, da da da, that you can, that you do in order to kind of get through that event. And she goes, Dad, people don't do that. And I'm like, oh, I thought that was normal. I thought everybody did it. Right? You know what I mean? And apparently not. They don't.
No, that is something new I just learned about you. So I am learn, you know, this in itself is just, it's great to really, really know who you are. I mean, I don't go into an event wondering or figuring out, okay, I can be happy emotionally, tears for like a minute, because that's acceptable. They kind of expect if I'm going to get choked up, and it's Livy's last year of high school soccer. I've coached her through, you know, this, so I can take that moment, get a little teary eyed for about a minute, then I can regroup and go back to, yeah, no, that's not.
See it on TV all the time. Because if I don't, what ends up happening is I don't know what to do and I bung up. So like it's kind of like when I get in a, like some people take it as taking your ball and running. But one of the things I'm trying to explain at work to people is, hey, if you see me just seem to like stop, that's because it's too many voices, too much. It's overstimulating, and my brain is just locked. So what I need is just a moment or two to kind of sit back, right? And if you've been in the corporate world, you know what this is like. Like you're sitting there working on a part of something. People are flying around, they're making changes to PowerPoint. You're all collaborating on something. The 7 voices going. Everybody's all giddy, 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 giddy. And I'm just like, okay, I'll catch up with him when you're done, right? Another scenario is when you think you're talking about personal, right? So like this, when we were visiting in Florida this year, you shared a story about Dad. I don't know if you noticed my reaction, but I had no idea what to do. Emotion wells. Hadn't planned on the scenario. It was totally out of the dark. I hadn't heard it before. I felt myself getting very like. So I don't know if you remember what I did. I left, right? I think I played around with my knapsack a little bit, and then do you remember who I went to?
You go to Jack?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I immediately went and sat next to Jack and with the cards and all that stuff because I knew that this was going to be, and selfish again, very safe scenario. Because Jack isn't going to look at me and ask what's wrong if my face doesn't look quite right. Jack's going to distract me because he's going to start talking and I'm going to focus on making sure that I understand what he's telling me to the best of my ability. And then I let it all just go by, and then I probably I think I was home here before I let myself kind of just walk through that scenario again. Like what you told me, and then shut it right down again, and then moved on. So that's one of the, I don't know if this is a gift, but one of the greatest gifts I think I have because my brain works differently is I don't have to, well, I say I don't have to, but I can compartmentalize things so well. I think that it allows me oftentimes not to have to deal with things I don't want to deal with. I can move it, set it, and then bring it back. And then if it's not, no, I'm just gonna. So you'd be amazed. There are things from 30 years ago I've never fully processed in my head of, you know, just because it's so much easier to, or not even, but just a gift that I can kind of put that in the back of my head, which on the other hand is what's the opposite of a gift? A curse. And the fact that one thing I have realized over the last 18 months is by just putting it behind me And, I think about Heidi surgery and stuff like that. Like some people thought I was like losing my mind or something. It was just because I was being very methodical. Okay, here's what's happening. Very sick, emergency situation. A lot of people are really, really emotional. What did I do? I went and did the best job I could. Absolutely cleanest shoveling of the driveway at Crestmont that anybody has ever seen. You know what I mean? Like it was the most efficient, and the sides were clean, the sidewalk, the whole kit. My sister-in-law comes by, asks me how I'm doing. I'm like, about 3/4 done. And I'm explaining the process of doing shoveling, and then apparently she was looking at me like, "Are you okay?"
Right.
Right? And for me, it was like, well, I don't want to deal with it, and I'm not. I can't like just sit there. So I'm gonna go home, and we had a snowstorm, so I'm gonna shovel the driveway, and it's gonna be awesome. And it was. I mean, it really was. If you come by and take a picture, it was a real good job. You know what I mean? And so that sometimes I think is a detriment not only in personal life but in professional life also, because there are times where people want to feel that something didn't go right or what this whatever, and I'm just like, let's go, right? Let's get the next one. Like I was in a contact center. God, don't I miss contact centers? I got to tell somebody that on LinkedIn in case they want someone to just hang out at a contact center for a day or two. But one of the favorite things I used to do when I travel around the country, helping contact centers improve operationally and what have you, is I used to love to remember the process, saying, "Oh, let me see it." So I'll never forget. I was in West Virginia, and they're having an issue with a certain process and what have you, and it was manager led, and so we're sitting there in the conference room, and normally you just sit there all day and you're doing all these meetings, and you're talking all that stuff because that's what leaders do. And I was like, "Hey, let's go." Like, what are you talking about? "Let's go." "Where?" "Out there. Let's go see it." "What do you mean?" I don't want to see a process." So I go out, walk up to a manager. I'm like, "Hey, I just heard about this great process you got. I know we're having a challenge with XYZ. Can you show it to me?" Dear eyes. Like, "Oh no, I get it." And one of the leads like, "You go onto the SharePoint." I said, "Okay, no, no, no." He's like, "I'm really sorry." I said, "No, nothing to be sorry about. No, no, no. Move on to the next one." Similar story. Move on to the next one. He knew where to go, but had forgotten how to do it. So let's say we get 5 out of 25 managers done. We're about 5 in. And we're like, "Oh, okay, great." I said, "All right. Everybody want to go back in?" I mean, these heads are down, both on the bank side. So we go back in the conference room, and I'm the only one that's giddy. And then I'm like, "Hey, how you guys doing?" They're like, "Oh, geez, I was embarrassed." I said, "No." And I'm like, "That's awesome." Like, "What do you mean it's awesome?" I said, "We just figured out the root cause."
They don't know.
So instead of sitting here, we just went out there for 15 minutes. We now know what the root cause is. So how about we spend the next 40 minutes action planning on how to, help it out? Whether it's a process, maybe it's too difficult, maybe they just didn't get it, maybe they didn't do enough training, whatever. But now we know why this isn't working and why you're having an issue over here, because they interlink. Your extra volume over here is coming because this isn't working right? So now we figure this out. Honestly, God, I was the only giddy one in the room. Right? But as we worked through it, by the end of the 4 days I was there, like I'd become a trusted partner. And they realized, wait a minute, no, he's actually he doesn't really care the fact that those 5 didn't know what happened. He just cares that now we know how to get better, and we're going to be more successful, and we're going to spend less time on this that we don't need to do because we've now rectified this, right? I'm not going to wall around it, right? I remember when I was one of the biggest learnings I had as a senior type leader. I'd taken over a department, and we're going down, and we have an offsite, and we go down. Well, I just come off a string of success, right? And my career was going bumpy here, there, whatever, da da da. And you line up the right executive, the right director in front of me, and then I just got an opportunity to go from manager to, I think we called them department managers, or unit leaders, whatever it was. So I'm taking over this bigger group. So instead of managing my own team, now I get a team that's got like 17 managers and 300 something people or whatever. And it's my first real big show. And so I go up and I'm like, I've been running it. I mean, my team was crushing it, making good money in my old department. Da, da, da. So I come out and I'm doing my road show, asking people questions, all that stuff that I'd seen people do. So we implement. They had a sense of humor. The whole department had been struggling, right? And I was already turned around a couple of things, and I think that's one reason I had the opportunity. So fast forward a little bit. We go to this leadership offsite. It's my first one. So the monthly reporting comes out. It's the first report of the month. Okay. Doug, we have not only not improved, we're doing worse than before I took over. And I'm like, so my manager at the time, and she was awesome. I mean, just awesome. She starts walking towards me, and I'm just about to lose breakfast, right? I'm like, and so you remember the umbrellas? So I think she took one look at my face and goes, "So you seen it?" I said, yeah. I just need a minute. She goes, "Oh, okay, yeah. Just follow up me later in the day. Let me know what you think you do." And so later in the day we reconnect, and I said, "You know what I think I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take a different approach." And she goes, "What's that?" And I said, "I'm gonna go back to all those managers that actually have more tenure than I have, and I'm gonna ask them what they think we should do." Hey, Jason, that'd be a great idea. So I go back and I pull everybody in the conference room the first day I'm back, and of course this is usually the so everybody comes in. I'm like, "Oh no, we gotta wait till everybody's here." You know, da, da, da. Comes in, and I go, "Okay, close the door." So I close the door, and everybody's okay. So I learned something at the offsite that I want to make sure that we implement. They're all like, because every time you go to an offsite, there's some new program or whatever. Everybody's like, "I'm gonna change it." And I'm like, "Okay, so here's what I learned. Yeah, my way's not working." And they're like, "What?" And I go, "Yeah." I go, "So I need everybody's lunch order because I'm gonna go get you lunch, and you guys are gonna stay here until you figure out what we're gonna do, and I'm gonna cover the floor." What? Like, no. Lunch on me. You guys figure it out. I'm gonna go cover the floor. And you know what happened, Doug? These managers, there was this whole one department, it was a specialty gate we had. This group, super tenured, right? They literally ran that business the whole time I was there. I would go in, and when something was going wrong, I'd go in and be like, "Hey, let me understand it. Let me go fight for you. Let me see if I can't, da 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 da." They just ran it, and they just crushed everybody else because I let them do that. And this was a big learning. I let them do the job. So then I get to focus on everybody. And then the other senior managers, they're going. So what I do is I said, "Hey, what do you think the newer folks need to know? And how about I spend my time there?" And so they help me upskill the newer folks, and then we go from last to first. But it was just a great learning all through that whole process of, and why I kind of work the way I do. But when you think about how my mind works, like I didn't dwell on that we're last. It wasn't anybody's fault except for mine. And like it was okay, now what do I do? And so in seeing that work, okay, I'm not an idiot. I go to another role, let's replicate it. I go to another role. Let's replicate it. Oh, it's working. Oh, it's working again. Oh, you trust people. You empower people. You let people do their job. It's working again. And it takes all the pressure off of me because I'm not that good, right? Like I can't do the job of 300 people. I can't do the job of 17 managers. I can't do the job of anybody other than the one job I get. And I got to realize that my job is a little bit different than everybody else's, but we're all on the same team. Like I don't really believe in this stuff. You have to have it. Like you have to have a seat.
Right, you're good. Yeah.
But if we're all in a group, like, aren't we like this, right? You know what I mean? Like, and before a game, when when they're doing the Star Spangled Banner, right? Is the coach up elevated on on a platform and everybody else below him? No, they're all standing in line, right? There's one team and they all have the function. If everybody knows what the function is and they do it right, golden. Now, you could go out there and chase the glory and be all worried about you being number one, start pointing fingers at people and all that stuff. But I just found the other way worked a lot better. But I don't even remember. I've got to tell that story. But oh no, when you help the people in the back end, so I can talk for a while, but that's just some of the things. I don't dwell on stuff, so it's both a gift, right? Because I'm not sitting there feeling bad for myself, and but it's also kind of a curse because when it comes into personally, there are times where something really bad happens, they want you to be acting like something really bad happened, and a lot of time I'm just sitting there not knowing what I'm supposed to do. Like I know people are upset, I know whatever, but my mind kind of goes in like, if someone feels it somewhere, something mean happens to someone or what have you, and it's like, okay, well, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Or like interrelational stuff. Oh, so and so, you can't. I'm like, okay, well, don't interact with them anymore. I can't do that. Why not? I do it all the time. They're like, well, I know, and look. You've got the feedback on that, haven't you, Jason? Oh, yeah, I've got the feedback. I try not to do it anymore. You know what I mean? But, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, on the personal level, yeah, that's something. But on a business level, that has helped you tremendously. And really, that's where I feel as a real leader, like letting them have, giving them ownership, which they should have, and for you not having the ego, because so many leaders, they want the glory. They will push the failures onto their team. Oh, my team didn't do this, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to get rid of Bo and Joe and instead of looking what a leadership role is, and that is an example, and there you have to have people in certain positions to get certain things done. You have to. A leader is also someone that rallies someone that looks, this is my opinion, I mean, it's my own opinion. It's someone that rallies the team, someone that looks at their strengths and weaknesses and helps them, like I said earlier, build on their strengths and then find ways to help them overcome their weaknesses and make them into strengths. That's a leader. And then you all win when it comes, to those achievements. And for you going and asking, you did it, you gave the example with your soccer team and you just gave another example. And I actually remember that business story. I remember that story. And then with your business team, and looking at, and some of the brightest entrepreneurs in the world say, I'm not the most intelligent person in the room. I know that I need intelligent people to make this happen. And I need people that have expertise in X, Y, Z to make the vision I've come up with a reality. Because that's what I am so excited to start bringing people on the team. Because there's so much of the aspect that I want A&I to be able to do that I don't have the expertise in. My mind either doesn't work that way or I've not educated myself on that. And I'm so excited to get people. And I think like lately we started getting families and stuff like giving me ideas and they can see that I take them and want to run with them instead of, that wasn't my idea. So I'm not, I'm like, ooh, that's really cool. All right, let's figure out how to do that. And then ask them to help find out how to do it, how to not just, oh, okay, lay it in my lap and then I'm going to take it now. It's like, ooh, this is a great idea. Okay, let's work together and figure out how to make it come a reality. And so I really didn't know what today's conversation was going to come about. But boy, I've always, and I know what I said a little while ago, but man, are you an extraordinary leader? I mean, and from the things that you've learned, the way that your mind is wired, all sorts of different, it's like, and I am really, really, these are the things that I go, oh, that's my brother right there. That's our similarity with how we want to encourage others and we want them to achieve. I want to see them rise. Like, I'll even make it a little bit simpler. You know how some families, some dads don't want their son to go beyond it. I'd love for Jack to leave me in the dust.
Yeah.
I mean, I want him to just excel like there's no tomorrow. I know you feel the same way about your girls. And in business, like when I'm seeing the interns and what they're doing, I just want them to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And it'd be one, and then they bypass me and they come up with their own. And I would be like, that would, to me, the greatest gift I could ever receive, to see them grow and achieve.
Yeah.
And that is what I believe, in my humble opinion, is what a true leader is and what a true leader can do. That builds up more leaders and more individuals that achieve. And it just makes the world just a better place and a more creative environment.